Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
WMAL. Good morning. It is 8:37 on WMAL, and we have Representative Steve King on the line. How are you doing, Congressman?
I'm doing just fine, and you this morning?
I'm very good. How was your event with one Chris Christie the other week?
One wonderful event, I have to say. It was great gratitude to Governor Christie, and it was full of people. It was the least work I've really ever had to do for an outstanding event. So
well, very
I'm
nice.
Completely grateful.
You sort of just turn him on and let him go, don't you?
I was listening to him speak, and I listen to a lot of people speak. It's a great privilege in this job. But what soaked through to me is that this man is more intense than I am. And he speaks with great clarity and great understanding of the big picture, and he knows where to put in the Roman numeral points, and he knows where to flesh it out.
Well, speaking of intense, the debate about the debt has been quite intense. I know that Friday the Boehner plan came up for a vote in the House. You voted against it, correct?
Yes.
And why did you do that, and what does it mean for the caucus's support of this debt deal framework that's in talks right now that's finally been put in writing?
Well, I don't think it takes us nearly far enough in the short term. Mm-hmm. The longer term, we can't promise. We can only say, here are the targets and the goals. The Ryan budget is only a promise from ourselves to ourselves, and it fell about $24 billion short of the Ryan budget just in FY12.
Right.
And then we had it queued up. Cut, cap, and balance was queued up, and it was reduced down to a constitutional amendment, a balanced budget amendment, without definition. So without definition can mean that if we're going to put one out on the floor for a vote, especially if it's something that needs to pass, we could end up with Democrat amendments on that would turn it into a simple majority to waive the balanced budget amendment. I mean, it could eventually be just pay-go by constitutional amendment. I want something stronger than this. I want to force this debate now. If we delay it 5 months or longer, then our deficit and our national debt increases significantly, and it gets harder and harder. Every day that goes by, it's harder to fix the problem.
So let me make sure I'm absolutely clear on your position. You're saying that when this proposal that has been put together by Speaker Boehner and McConnell, and it's been signed off on by the White House, when it comes up, you will vote against it?
Well, I'm leaning no on it now. I want to look at the whole proposal again. They just sent me the link to the language, and so I don't want to come out and say that I am a no under all circumstances. I want to see if there's any language that's been improved on it. But I believe that this has been a crisis that has been much of it created by the rhetoric that flowed from the White House and some of the leaders in the House and the Senate to embrace the language that default is a crisis, and default now means that the first minute that the U.S. runs out of borrowing authority, default would be in the improbable event that the president would order that we wouldn't use part of the $200 billion a month that comes in to service our debt. This argument is based upon an effort, I think, to stampede us into giving the president the money he wants to spend and not have to be confronted again until after he might be reelected.
So not a hard no, but you got real concerns.
Yes, I do, and I watched so much of this, and so many years of a promise to do something later. Where in history have we done something now? And now is the time. That's my position on it, and I want to encourage my colleagues, look at this and see. Maybe they're going to all vote the other way on this, and there's a chance I might vote with all those folks. But take a look at this, put this marker down, and remember 5 months from now what was said by some of the dissenters, what our obligations are in now, and what our obligations are to dial this curve down. I mean, the last Boehner bill, the one I voted against, and it was an improvement, I admit, and he's worked hard at this, and I respect him for it. But it took our $25 trillion deficit that we'd be looking at in 10 years down to $24 trillion. I don't think that's much of a step in the right direction. I want to take bold steps, and I think a lot of the public's ready for it if we would just give them the kind of plan that they could support.
Just very quickly, do you think the measure has the votes to pass in the House with some Democratic support?
Yeah, I think it does. I think there's an anticipation that there will be Democrat votes, and probably a respectable number of them. That's what I'm hearing. So I do think it passes. But, nobody is, maybe I can't say nobody, but most of us have not read the bill. We've not analyzed the bill, although we do have an understanding of the framework. The White House's description of it's a little bit different than that of the House description of it. So I want to compare the language.
Well, I guess my concern is, as somebody who really likes cut, cap, and balance, and really also believes that we have money to pay our debts, I don't believe that it's ultimately instantly default as soon as you go past the date. But I'm still concerned that it feels like there's no plan for conservative victory if you don't have a deal before August 3rd. It doesn't feel like we would win that discussion in that fight, and I haven't had anybody convince me that we would.
Well, I don't know about feelings, Mary Catherine.
Yeah.
I know you're a rational person, too, as well as feeling. And I like to look at these things and think we have a long-term obligation. And there's a political center here that we're trying to find within the Republican conference in the House, for example, the Republican caucus in the Senate, within the House and broader in the Senate, broader than, of course, America. And sometimes, you've got to have people that are willing to weigh in on the other side of center, or that center never moves. And I'm really glad the Tea Party has weighed in the way they did. They're not the only ones by any means, but they've been effective.
I think I agree with you. I think they've totally changed the idea of what was possible in this bill.
And so if everybody jumps on board and embraces this and says, I'm going to embrace it on the basis of, I think it's the best deal we can get. See, I've been hearing that for several weeks. We've had several best deals we can get along the way. And that's just not a good enough reason. And what if we get to this point where the president doesn't have this money to spend, and we are forced then to actually make spending priorities and cuts now, in the here and now? What if that comes? What if the president's looking at a bill that the House can't pass? What if we go back to the drawing board? Is he ready to support? Are some of the reluctant Democrats ready to support a constitutional amendment that's actually defined? Or have we now made it very clear that the Democrats in Congress, House and Senate, and the president never want to live under a balanced budget? They've pretty much made that clear to me. They never want to. If they can't countenance the idea of it within 10 years, then they're saying that their grandchildren shall never live under a balanced budget, and they must believe that we can borrow money in perpetuity and grow our national debt forever. There's got to be a time when it comes to an end.
Congressman, I hear the bill is about 74 pages long, so you'll have a chance to read it today. Have you heard when they're going to have a vote in the House?
Not as far as time is concerned, but the indication yesterday was that vote could come today, and was likely to come today.
All right, good deal. Congressman Steve King, a Republican from Iowa, a good friend of this broadcast. We really appreciate you joining us here on a very important news.